Is it working? Because I was thinking, who in the hell is that guy Dale's talking about? Sounds like a great guy. I need to know him. Let's see. Okay, there's a lot of technology up here, so you know, I'm really kind of a chalkboard guy. So if things get a little confused, you'll know what happened, right? My students say I like low tech. Well, I talked to a friend of mine in the English department. I said, I'm giving this talk, and I really want it to be somewhat literary instead of scientific. And he said, well, I said, what do I need to include? He said, well, you need a metaphor for life. And you need some drama with a touch of mystery. And you need to talk about nature and throw in some adventure and then slip in a little sex. So that's my goal today. So I have a picture up here, and some time ago, this is our grandson. I was out walking with him, and we were examining things just out on our walk. And when we got back, I noticed that his trousers were hanging low. And his mother hauled him over, said, Ashton, start emptying your pockets. And he started emptying his pockets, and there were rocks, and there were sticks and twigs and things he'd collected. And so my wife was there, and she said, our daughter-in-law's, well, gee, you know, he's always doing this. And my wife said, well, he comes by it honestly, so she says, Craig, empty your pockets. So I had some rocks in there, and some sticks, and some lichen. And that's where the title of this talk really comes from. Is the mic working okay, by the way? Can you hear everything? Okay. So I have this other one here, too. Yeah, like a mic. Uh-oh. There's a new field in biology called epigenetics. This field, which is people are just beginning to investigate, suggests that we all have a genetic potential, but that one thing that can turn genes on and off is our behavior. And I want to suggest today that we all have a gene. You can call it the rocks in your pocket gene or whatever you want to call it. This particular gene is our gene with the fascination for the natural world. I know you came out of the womb with this gene functioning. And I know for many of us, this gene gets inactivated over time. And so what I want to do in my presentation today is to tell you about how microbes rule the world, but really my metaphor is to encourage you, if this gene is off, to turn it back on. And my example of this, and this is dangerous. Well, actually, I can't remember how to, oh yeah, I forgot I had this. See, I just wanted to go with the trike one, but I was so proud of that buckaroo outfit that I wanted to put that in there because I don't know about you, if you look back at your earliest memory, but this trike represents my earliest memory. Between our house and the neighbor's house was a hedge, which I was not allowed to ride my trike around. But the neighbors had a large collie, which I was fond of. So this is by far my earliest recollection. I rode the trike, knowing full well that I would get in trouble, around the hedge to see the collie. But the collie had just regurgitated. And I rode over there to investigate because my gene was still on. And I looked at it. I even brought show and tell, a roundworm. And I remember thinking, my earliest recollection, they feed their dog moving spaghetti. See? Mystery. With a touch of nature. And I'm still fascinated with moving spaghetti. Okay. Well, we should all feel that, that we are integrated into the natural world. In fact, if you look at yourself, you are part of the natural world. But there's another part of the natural world that's very difficult to see, and those are microorganisms. And I have up here a couple of phylogenetic trees. So I don't want to really hurt your feelings, but if you look at these two representative trees, you can see that if we go over here, this is fairly simple. If you can see this tree, you're this little teeny branch over here. Kind of puts you in your place a little. And the rest of this tree is the microbial world, which we don't often see. So microorganisms are the dominant life form, and I'm going to attempt to take a few examples and prove that. I suspect that, most of the microbes probably on this planet don't even know we exist. Okay? And they don't care. Except occasionally, when they make us care and modify our behavior by causing diarrhea, which I promised, which is drama with a little touch of nature. So I put this up for Gene Sessions, who I've done a few things with, and it's my first rock. So this rock I picked up on walking along the beach in Oregon. It's got a couple of cool fossil shells in it, so that's for the geologists. Microbes control history, and I put a little list here of things. If you can read down through that list, you can see that a lot of things have happened because of microorganisms. The fall of the Roman Empire, the defeat of Napoleon, thank you, typhus. African slaves in the Americas, which eventually we result in the Civil War in the United States. Thank you, measles and smallpox. See, the micro students, they're ahead of me on this. World War I. There's your chance to look really smart and get out early, because you can go if you answer this. Influenza. Exodus from Ireland. We're back to the fungus, and on. Lots of things down through there that you can put a microorganism as the cause of. So I only picked a couple. One is the decline of the Roman Empire, and I put this up here to show you that there were 3 plagues with the resulting aspect. We don't know what the second plague was. We suspect the first plague was caused by smallpox. And if you can imagine 1/3 of the population gone within 15 years, including Marcus Aurelius, who was a victim of this plague. In 250 AD, the plague of Cyprian. And if you read the historians of the time, although we have no idea what organism caused this, he wrote, "No human will be left alive. Villages, 95% fatality rate." That would catch your eye today, wouldn't it? And then in 542 AD, bubonic plague came through, 50 years duration, allowing some pretty interesting things to occur. Okay? So that's all I'm going to do with that rock. Except I wanted to tell one other little story here. So what in the world does the mobile quarantine facility, Michael Crichton's book, and Lassa Fever have? So I thought, hey, there must be a lot of other interesting stories besides these ones that you read in the book. So I made this one up myself. They don't all have to be true. So what happened? We went, so this is for the astrophysicists. Yeah, there you go. I'm coming back to you, though, again. So what happened? Well, an interesting thing happened, and I used this in an honors class I taught one time. We're sending Apollo to the moon, right? We're going to land on the moon, and what's our biggest concern about landing on the moon? is there some weird microbe on the moon we're going to bring back and eradicate the human population? Because if there is, I mean, it effectively worked on the moon. There were no humans. And so Michael Crichton, who was really smart and just passed away, he writes the Andromeda Strain, which was made into a movie, right? Which then we remade into a little worse version of the original movie, which was great. And this spaceship scoops up some weird space virus, comes back, solidifies everybody's blood, gets into clouds, wiping out the U.S. and so forth. And along comes Lassa fever virus, which I have a little picture of there. Lassa fever virus was one of the first hemorrhagic fever viruses we discovered in the 1960s. Lassa fever virus, we had a nice outbreak, which was just great. I mean, perfect timing by a virus. The outbreak of Lassa fever occurred at the same time everybody watched Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain movie, and Apollo came back from the moon. Lassa fever was a virus that we now talk a little bit more about Ebola, that caused your blood to liquefy, pour out of every orifice, drama, and killed 95% of the people that had it. Wow, that's an amazing story. So, of course, when all that happened, we had to get so we took the Apollo astronauts and put them into a converted Airstream trailer for 65 hours to see if their blood either liquefied or solidified before we let them out to interview them. So there have been some interesting things that have gone on even today. And the other thing I wanted to cover, because I'm getting a little tired of this asteroid thing for dinosaurs, is how dinosaurs really, so that's a little play on Gary Larson, that's his interpretation of how dinosaurs really became extinct. But there is an interesting theory right now about how dinosaurs became extinct, and it has to do with the pictures I have on the other side, fungi. So at the time, and we can appreciate this given that we're looking at the Earth warming, the Earth was warm, and there were a lot of plants. And anytime you have things that are warm with a lot of plants, you have a lot of fungi, right? In fact, we figure that there's evidence that we had massive fungal blooms. And one thing that's susceptible to fungus are cold-blooded animals, because they have to spend so much of their calorie intake to maintain body temperature. And one of the new theories now about how dinosaurs became extinct is that this massive fungal bloom infected the dinosaurs. And they died because of a microbe made them extinct. I personally think that's absolutely true. Just kidding. But I do know one interesting fact, and that is that fungi are the only class of microorganisms to cause extinctions. And we have had a number of amphibian species and genera become extinct because of fungal infections. And when scientists take these amphibians and warm them up to elevate their temperature, it cures them of the fungi. So, interesting theory, and just part of, I believe, how microbes rule the world. Well, speaking about dinosaurs reminds me about cheese. So I found this interesting rock, which I thought it was heavy, and I thought it was a meteorite, but I took it to Adolf in the geology department. He said it was just a highly radioactive iron nodule, so it's a little disappointed. Another rock that I've had the privilege in my life of working with is cheese. So that was a good move for me because I went to get a PhD in a pathogenic virus lab where you had to wear a suit and gloves and everything. It was a BL3 containment facility. And then one day the professor told me, hey, we're out of money and you're gone. Well, kind of stopped my heart a little bit, but I was taking a food fermentation class, so I asked the guy teaching that class, hey, you got any room for a PhD student? He said, yeah, working on a cheese project. I thought, okay, pathogenic viruses, cheese, perfect. So I have some pictures here, some electron micrographs we took some time ago. Look pretty disgusting to me. A lot of microorganisms in that. That's actually mozzarella cheese, or string cheese, as you might consume, so don't let it worry you. They're supposed to be there. It was a good move for me, though, because from going from that pathogenic lab to a cheese project, it was nice to be able to take your mistakes home and grill them on some toast and eat them. And even to this day, this is a recent trip we went to, so now I'm back to that BL3 because in order to go through this sophisticated mozzarella cheese producing plant, that's the outfit that you wore. I just like it. Yeah, you got a hard hat, like you're going to hit the head with some cheese curd or something. Okay, this picture, let's see. Oh, this is a piece of petrified wood I found up in Wyoming one time. And it's got some white stuff in the middle. It's petrified, but it reminds me of white rot fungus. So here's another rock in my collection of my career. I got to go to Woods Hole Marine Biological Laboratory, which was a great opportunity. And when I got there originally, this kind of spawned the picture on the flyer. I was working with these cool toadfish, which are the only fish that can vocalize, so they could kind of talk to you if you stroked them just right. And I was collecting their mucus and then just smearing it around to see if it was antimicrobial, but toadfish mucus ointment didn't look like it was going to catch on. And so one day they said, hey, no one wants to work in the anaerobic hood. Do you want to work in the anaerobic hood? We got all these Petri dishes in there. I said, yeah, I'll just go get a sample of mud out of this pond. So I rode my bike over to this pond, and I waded out into the pond, and I got the sample about waist deep, so I had to kind of hold my breath and get this mud sample out of there. 2 weeks later, after I'd gotten this, obtained this sample, I read an article in the Falmouth News, the little town where the pond was located, that a 12-foot great white shark had gone in there in high tide and then just stayed in there. Adventure. So I played them out in this anaerobic chamber and got some weird looking things, and then I took some pictures of them under the microscope, and they were kind of, looked kind of like bacteria. And then I had a friend help me with an analysis, and all the colored ones on here, this is what scientists do. We make figures like this that are totally incomprehensible to 95% of the population. We call it job security. And all the red ones in there were my isolates, and they'd never before been grown on a Petri dish. No one had seen them before. And so all the other students in the class who were trying to discover one organism were kind of aghast. I had 37. I thought it was just plain blind luck, which a lot of science is. And so that made me think of the Crab Nebula. And I thought, I am so sick of those astronomers having cool pictures of nebulae with telescopes. So there's got to be something we can do with a microscope. So I went for it with this fancy microscope late one night, 15 Diet Cokes, and 4 in the morning later. I had started taking pictures of these plates, and this didn't look very interesting to me. But then, can you see those pictures inside there? Now I'm telling you, that one over there is as good as any Crab Nebula. And then they just kept getting better. So yeah, I think this was just a cool rock for me to take pictures of organisms. Look at that weird one over there. It looks like a supernova. See, microbes can do it too. I don't care what the astronomers say. We're all over it. And then this was the last one, and when I saw this, I knew that microbes rule, astronomers drool. Okay, now I'm lost. So I found this cool rock one day when I was out fishing. I thought, hey, how does a rock become red and white striped like an Oreo like that? I asked the geology guys. I haven't got a really good answer yet, but I just kept it because it looked, I mean, doesn't that look like, yeah, it just reminded me of something good to eat. So about 12 years ago, a colleague, Lynn and I, we got challenged. They said, we'd like you to teach a summer class in microbiology, but you can't really use a microscope, and you have to go on a field trip. Hey, we can do that. So, you know, they kind of laughed like they weren't going to have to pay us any money, and we said, hey, we're going, there's a great, so you're lucky. You live not very far away from the greatest microbial place in the world to see microorganisms with your naked eye. Sex. So we went for it. And we've been going for 12 years, and my opinion is if you can keep 22 junior high science teachers captivated for 5 days, you're there, man. Of course, it helps to have a few buffalo and things around. So I'm just going to take you on a brief tour. So if you leave here with nothing else, hopefully you'll have an appreciation. When you go to Norris Geyser Basin and see that blue water, that doesn't have anything to do with microorganisms. Just messing with you. Actually, when you go to all these places, in every habitat that you see in Yellowstone, there are, if you took a scoop out of that mud volcano or that sterile-looking pool or that little teeny fumarole, you would find greater than 1 billion microorganisms per gram of material. You can't live there. They love it. You take them out of there, they don't like it. And one of the interesting things about Norris Geyser Basin, so I just threw this slide in here, is that microorganisms will grow up to the exact temperature where they can't survive. And what you see here, and now they have a little plaque there since we started this, is a microbial thermometer. So you can see where the green is. Right at the edge of that green, this organism only grows to 62 degrees centigrade, so that's 61.999, and it won't grow a centimeter beyond that. And they also have some other crazy things, like this algae that grows there that grows at pH 2. pH 2? So that's stick your tongue in a battery. And then, this is one of my favorites, so we've got the ag science teachers with us, and they're like, you can't teach us anything. And if you go up, drive up to Nymph Lake, so you can drive there, and there's a little bit of a pull-off. And if you drive there, you notice, see that mat of material there? That's a free-living turkey pathogen. I really have never seen any turkeys around this lake. And right there, a pathogenic turkey fungus growing in a big mat on the edge of a thermophilic lake in Yellowstone. So now I have the ag teacher's attention. By the way, how did I know that? Somebody in 1955 walked around that lake, grabbed samples of the fungi, and stuck it in the noses of turkeys from Pennsylvania. You gotta love scientists. If you go a little farther up to Nymph Creek, which I encourage you to do, you'll see that it's bright green because of another algae that grows there at pH 3 and a temperature of about 70, but this is one of my favorite ones. If you walk down there, just at the head of that stream, right off the lake, you'll find this organism, and you can see it with your unaided eye. It's encrusted with sulfur, and this microorganism is very unique. It only grows in a range of about 4 feet, where everything is exactly perfect for its growth, likes elemental sulfur. And then I want to take you with this picture right here. So now I'm to astrobiology. I keep coming back to that just because I think it's kind of interesting, although I consider myself an astrobiologist studying the biology of Earth. You know what this is? This is a bacteria that grows. Maybe you've seen this at Mammoth Hot Springs. It grows at the edge of where the hot water comes out in Mammoth Hot Springs. It becomes encrusted with calcium carbonate, and it forms a microbial fossil that's visible to the eye. And if you look right at where the water comes out, you can see you can see a microorganism before your eyes growing, encrusted with the sulfur, and there it is. And one time when we were there, there were some folks from NASA there. They were looking around at what was left from these fossilized microorganisms because they were interested in biological terraforming, which means that microbes play a role in developing structures found on the Earth. So, microbes rule, geologists rule. I'm going to win today. And they were wondering if they could see these structures on other planets, places that they were going to visit. So you look at that, that's a microbial fossil, which looks like a geological structure. One other interesting thing, I have a colleague whose name is Bruce Folk. He's at the University of Illinois Champaign. And you've probably all seen the terraces at Mammoth Hot Springs. And if you do everything just right, if they let you and you have the right permit and you reach way over there with a golf ball collector and you get a little sample of water out of each one of those terraces on the way up, and then you analyze it for the microbial life that's in it, you find that the difference between each terrace, as each terrace drops down from one level to the next, the difference in microbial life forms between those two terraces is greater than the difference of macroscopic life forms you would find between a desert and a jungle and the Arctic. Adolph's giving me the quizzical look. It's true. So, of course, there's some other cool places to go. I'll just make a little tour. You can go over to the Mud Volcano area, and you see this. And what is this? This is a living biofilm of microorganisms that live at pH 2 and with a temperature that's boiling. So, a lot of fun things over there. I'll just take a pass on a few, except for this one. And this is a place you can go, so I'll tell you how to get there. So go to the Firehole Lake Drive, go up it, stop at the first place you can park by a giant geyser, and there's a little trail that goes off to the southwest. And if you walk around that trail, you'll come to Octopus Spring. And so you can walk, see this is, don't point on that. This is the little trail right here that goes around it. And over here's the parking lot right about Adam's Head. Maybe a little farther. Okay? And if you go to the outlet channel, which is right here. Well, let's go back. Whoa. This isn't going so good. I thought I said it went backwards. There we go. See, that's why I like chalk. If you go right over here to this, there's a orange area that extends all the way down through here. This orange area looks like this. And microorganisms like to hang out in groups. Okay? And if you, although you can't, but if you have a permit and you cut a hole in this and you pull out this microbial mat and put it in a petri dish, you have the equivalent to the Amazon rainforest that grows around this. And you can see here this microbial layered rainforest that's one of the thickest and most interesting and most studied mats of microorganisms in the world. But then if you walk to the outflow channel, and that's not too good of a picture, but there's a good one, you can see the rarest thing in Yellowstone. So that's why I would say go there. These were originally called the pink filaments. Can you see the pink color there? And these pink filaments grow in one area that is 1.5 meters long and 0.5 meters wide. It's the only place in the world they've been found. And you can see them there. These are microscopic filaments that mat together and form this candy corn, or this cotton candy look. Okay. This is my colleague Don, the cheese guy, breaking the law. Just keep this. No, he had permission to stick the tube in there. Yeah, we were just kind of waiting to film that, you know, greatest disaster moment. Okay, well, thinking about Yellowstone makes me think about a couple of other things here as we go along. And one of the other things Oh, so here's an agate that I found, and then we put it in the rock polisher. So I just thought it looked cool. Okay. One of the things that I like, and I've had opportunity to look at a little bit, is from a line out of Jurassic Park. Gene shared this with me, and I like it, where life always finds a way. And if you don't think microbes rule the world, then you've got to look around at all the places you wouldn't want to be. Right? It's a pretty long list, isn't it? Antarctica, Hooper, South Dakota. Yeah. And I put this up there. You can see this is at Mount St. Helens when it blew up, and then so scientists could not wait to get to where Mount St. Helens blew up. They wanted to get there because they wanted to watch the succession of life, what recolonized it. And they went rushing in there. Some water began to collect. They began to sample it because they knew microbes would be first. And what they discovered is that the very first organisms in there we had first seen in 1976. In the summer of 1976, in July, in Philadelphia, we had an interesting epidemiological experience. We had the outbreak of, and the Legionnaires did not like the name, Legionnaires disease, though they came to embrace it later. A bacteria that caused a respiratory problem, a pneumonia. And when the scientists rushed in there to see everything that was going on, they discovered to their amazement that the organism that colonized the water first was the Legionnaires organism. That's just a curious thing. To me, that's just curious, and I like it like I like that polished rock. More interest is the Hanford nuclear facility. So up on the Columbia River, as I recall, we used to, we made over half of all the enriched uranium for our atomic warheads. And then it had been leaking, and we decided that didn't look too good, that giant nuclear dump. So we went in there and we began to very carefully clean it up. And we were thinking, boy, this has just sterilized the environment. And they lift up all the cement underneath the Hanover reactor, and it looks a little curious to them under there. And they find this organism, Deinococcus radiodurans, growing under there. And it's growing at about 1,000 times the radiation level of anything that we ever knew that could live at that radiation level. And I put a little table over here. You can see at the radiation level over here of the Hanover reactor how our humans and cockroaches, they're pretty hardy, and E. coli, how are they going to do? Life always finds a way. Not only was it growing under there, but it preferred the radioactive uranium as an electron, I think, acceptor. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle. Later, not in public. And then, just because I love this weird thing, somebody, now who would think about taking a brown surgeonfish from the Great Barrier Reef, cutting it open and looking in its guts for strange things? Man, there are just some awesome things going on. And I just wanted to show you this picture of this, that's coming. This bacteria here. So bacteria are pretty small, and we can only see them with a microscope, and you can hold this bacteria in your hand and see it. There's a lot of weird things out there still to discover. So when I was thinking about these things, got together with some colleagues, which we've been doing in our department for a while, and we got a weird place just west of here called the Great Salt Lake. So there's my snappy photo of what's been going on lately in the Great Salt Lake. So some of the students will recognize themselves, and they'll also recognize that we can only stop for about 10 seconds to take this picture because we are out there at the height of biting gnat season. Is that right, Chrissy? Yes. Oh, yeah. So we were running for our lives. But I wanted to show this picture just to show you what kind of things. Oh, another rock. I picked this up in the Wind Rivers. It just reminds me of a really good fishing trip that I went on. And it's kind of cool because it's got little pustules on it, which kind of remind me of a rock having smallpox. here's our crew. And if you go out there, one of the more disgusting things that you find are these windrows of brine shrimp husks, exoskeletons, and brine fly husks. And I got to thinking, you know, what eats that stuff? And so some students have been working on that for a couple of years, and lo and behold, there are a lot of microorganisms that eat that. I just have a 96-well plate here. We even had students in our, here at Weber State, develop a very novel fluorescent test to quantify and to qualify the types of organisms and how they consume that. Down here I have some pictures. We've had students who, these are pictures, electron micrographs of viruses never before discovered, and they've been isolating these and characterizing them. And then over here you can see a petri dish. We first saw this, I thought, man, James, you really don't know how to plate viruses. That doesn't look too good to me. And we investigated this a little more, and you're seeing something here for the first time. We haven't even really reported on this. In this area here is a normal bacteria from the Great Salt Lake, and in each one of these spots was originally a little pack of bacterial wolves. Predatory bacteria, 1/10 the size of normal bacteria, and that's what happens to you when a pack of bacterial wolves gets after you. So never before reported, so it's been kind of fun with our students. Okay, and then somebody said, please talk about, better talk about H1N1. Okay, so influenza. Okay, where's my list of, okay, drama. Yeah, it's in the news everywhere, so, but I wanted to mention just for a moment about influenza. Influenza is an interesting virus. Influenza has a wide variety of ways that it can mutate. Now, why do microbes rule the world? Because they can do sex 3 different ways. Let's see. Sex, adventure, nature, and drama. And they mutate 10 times faster than you do, so they're always going to win. And viruses mutate 100 times faster than you do. And influenza virus mutates 200 times faster than you do. So are we always going to have influenza? Absolutely. And the influenza A virus is an interesting virus because if we look up here, it has, not only does it mutate, but it has 8 little segments of RNA that when it gets in a cell, they can recombine. So when I think about influenza H1N1, I think about sex gone bad. It's the truth. Although you can think of it as a quality control issue. Because what happens is so influenza is a bird virus, and you can take influenza, and in a pig lung, you can have in the same cell 2 different strains of influenza. So here's a pig virus and a bird virus, and when it replicates, there's no quality control person there. The genes recombine however they want, and one strain then can pick up characteristics of both. And when this occurs, we end up with a new human virus, and it enters the human host. Oh. Yeah, I had to put a real fish picture in. Well, Gene told me, hey, when 1/3 of the audience gets up, time to stop. And I'm getting close to that. But I want to just finish up with this lecture by saying to my grandson, who's not here, that I hope, as you get older, you'll always pick up a rock. And I hope for all of you, it's been my privilege to have a career where I've been able to pick up rocks and collect rocks. And these rocks are related to the discipline of microbiology. And I've shown here a little bit of the nature of things, of the kind of rocks that have interested me over time, everything from cheese to influenza to predatory bacteria in the Great Salt Lake to biofilms in Yellowstone. It's attributed to J.S.B. Haldane many years ago, a noted evolutionary biologist. When asked by a religious authority what he had learned from his research concerning the creator of the planet, he said, "He has an inordinate fondness for beetles." And what I have concluded, after almost 30 years, if I was to be asked about the creator of the earth, I would say, has an inordinate fondness for microbes. Microbes may not be the particular rock that you're interested in filling your pockets with, but it certainly has been mine. So I hope somehow, if the gene has been inactivated, that you'll turn it on and find some kind of rock in nature that you can put in your pocket and collect. Thank you.